By the time I graduated college, I had been taught, as we all have been, by about 100 teachers. And the ones I remember best are the ones that I bold-faced because we spent about 1,000 hours together every year. I also remember these people. We spent about 1,000 hours a year together, too, for 6, maybe 7 years, especially in 6th grade with Mrs. Russo. She taught us to think for ourselves, and she also taught us to collaborate. So fast forward to college right here in Geneseo. Freshman year, I'm writing an original radio drama with actors from the theater department. Eventually, I'm running the newspaper, hosting radio shows, producing a TV series, and my friends are doing all kinds of cool stuff too. We are taking charge of our education. As an English major, I'm reading about 500 pages a week. It becomes pretty clear, if you want to think for yourself, you really want to be reading a good book. I'm less enthusiastic about work in the classroom. I'm sitting through it, listening to a lecturer. I'm going with the flow. And then comes Shakespeare. This is one of the reasons I became an English major. So we read all of Shakespeare's plays. That's 17 comedies, 10 histories, 10 tragedies, 37 plays in all, in 20 weeks. We are speed reading through Shakespeare, and I hate it. And then comes Chaucer, and I want to learn about the Crusades from each character's point of view, the Miller's Tale, the Knight's Tale. But Canterbury Tales is written in Middle English, and we're reading it out loud, and I can't understand a word. I've had enough. I am miserable at college. Why can't I make my own decisions about what I'm learning and how I learn it? So I go storming up to the administration building, not very far away, and I'm intercepted by this woman named Joan Shoemaker. And Joan says to me, I have a secret for you. And she works in academic affairs, and she says I don't have to go to class. I can study whatever I want to learn. So, 2 words from Joan changed my life. Independent study. In total, I did 11 independent studies at Geneseo. I read every word by John Steinbeck, Arthur Miller, and Jack Kerouac. I learned to write a nonfiction book. I studied journalistic storytelling. And post-college, I've written 24 nonfiction books. I've written a newspaper column for 100 papers. Those early lessons about learning and thinking for myself and collaborating, they gave me a career. Now, around this time, some people in the counterculture, world of hippies, etc., in the San Francisco Bay Area are wondering whether technology might allow people to learn on their own. And so they invented the first personal computers. At about the same time in Manhattan, foundation executives are wondering whether television could help young children learn. But instead of replicating school, the staff of what becomes Sesame Street comes up with their own curriculum. They invented it. Academic skills, cognitive development, social and moral development, and emotional development. So Sesame Street is now available in 148 countries. So what did they do right? Well, they hired independent thinkers, scholars, creative people, educators, psychologists, filmmakers, animators, puppeteers, researchers. And they encouraged all of these people to collaborate, including people who had never worked together before. These guys invented Big Bird. So they used all available media. They used television and film and stage shows and games and books and toys, anything they could do to help kids understand the world. And they tested everything about the learning experience, including how often children were distracted. They accepted responsibility. This team of people was extraordinary. If kids did not understand the lesson, it was the fault of the lesson, not the kid. Take that, Chaucer. So, after college, everything is changing, and it's changing really fast. There are VCRs, then there's cable TV, the civil rights movement, women's rights. People are taking responsibility for their bodies and for their minds. Old ways are fading, but the transition, it's kind of messy. So here's the headline. The geography curriculum has disappeared. U.S. students can't identify the country to the north or the south. So has Mount McKinley, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and all the tea in China. What are we going to do about it? Produce a television show. With Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, we are going to teach millions of children about geography and the world, but there is no plan. We have no curriculum. My job is to develop the project and then produce it, and I start that by writing a few sample questions. So the question is, what's the capital of Australia? You can all shout out the correct answer? Okay, very good, Canberra. So we needed a baseline. We needed something other than the atlas. So I grabbed a bunch of index cards. And I asked students and teachers to write down everything they knew about France or England. For France, they wrote down French fries, and Paris, and Big Ben, and not much more. For England, it's the Eiffel Tower, and the Queen, and talking funny. So we've got a pretty low baseline. It's going to be a long haul. But the students were curious because, well, first they wanted to see pictures of the world. There was no internet video then, but they wanted to see pictures of the world. And also because Juan Carlos from the Dominican Republic is sitting next to Krishna from India in class. So there's a lot of curiosity. The students also told me they weren't going to watch a boring show about geography. It had to be fun. So we invented our own imaginary world with cartoon crooks, rockapella, clowning around and singing songs that provided clues, a very demanding chief of Acme CrimeNet, played by Lynn Thigpen, and the special agent in charge of training new recruits, Greg Lee, and a gigantic map of every continent where one of the gumshoes would run to the countries Carmen may have traveled. Well, that was 20 years ago, and I want to do it again, or something a lot like it. Maybe on the internet, maybe for adults. With Sesame and with Carmen, everything began with a big, gnarly, nearly impossible problem. So it's the 21st century. We have access to more information than anyone who has ever lived on Earth. And maybe we can answer every question with Google or Wikipedia. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is there's too much information. Our pile is massive. Every minute, it's 300 new hours of YouTube video. So how on earth do we figure out what matters? And how do we figure out who's telling the truth? Sure, we can read books, watch TED Talks, listen to NPR, go to a Sunday sermon, but it's really challenging to understand the big picture. So what do I want to do? I want to collaborate with people all over the world. We have the internet. It seems like a terrific idea. I want to create a place on the internet where we can discuss important ideas, learn from each other, and have fun doing it. So I'm thinking about a blue sky cafe where people and puppets can get together to interview world leaders and to ask them some really simple questions. My new independent study. A cafe seems like a really good starting place. Not a real cafe, but a digital cafe where anyone can access it from a smartphone or a tablet any time of the day or night. Do we serve digital coffee? Absolutely we do. So maybe the cafe is part of a busy train station where people come and go from all over the world. Maybe the cafe is our take on the neighborhood on Sesame Street or the detective office in Carmen Sandiego. It seems as though it would be the right place because our characters, our experts, our scholars and musicians, well, they could all hang out there with places for intimate conversations and big musical numbers. Next to the cafe, a blue sky bookstore, managed by a puppet character, actually operated by a dozen of the world's finest independent booksellers. And maybe on the other side, there's a big old music hall, and the music hall is the home to lectures and interviews and all sorts of conversations. Maybe the cafe lives at the center of a big data game. Again, a game that we could play all over the country, all over the world, powered by social media. So my life, I'm living it inside Einstein's quote, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." All right, so right now, we're developing the original characters. We want all of them to look at a straightforward question and come up with 16 completely different answers. But you start somewhere, and our somewhere was the Myers-Briggs, this group of 16 different types, but we're mixing them with animal behavior. We figure that if we can explore nature versus nurture, we might be able to get at are humans innately good or evil? And each character is thinking, wouldn't life be easier if everyone saw the world the way I do? So far, we're in the middle of this character development process. We're like in Quant, who sees the world through numbers. So you might think in terms of maybe a combination of the Count on Sesame Street and Mr. Spock. True Blue, who believes in America, right or wrong. On the Beat, this is one of my favorites, a feisty Chihuahua who used to do investigative reporting with Hunter Thompson at Rolling Stone. And Rena, who is rebuilding her life while building a blue sky bookstore. And what do the characters do? What happens in the cafe? Well, we started by asking provocative questions. So I'll give you a few of them. One of my favorites, which is about probability, is should you bet your bottom dollar that the sun will come out tomorrow? Does God exist? One of the things I've always been curious about is why is the Earth so close to the sun that we have a temperate climate, but not so close that we boil and not so far away that we freeze? Should the US eliminate political advertising? Should the internet be free? So it was fun to debate the questions, and we realized more and more as we debated them how little we knew and how little we understood. So, for example, try this one. Adults find that questions are often complicated, the answers even more so. So does God exist? And if the answer is yes, is there more than one? A, yes, just one mind. B, none at all. We made up the whole thing. C, Allah, Jesus, the Jewish God, Vishnu, they're all the same in the end. Or D, I have no idea. And adults know it's okay to say, I have no idea. Well, random provocative questions are interesting, but adults do better with context and with connections between ideas. So bearing that in mind, we wrote sample script. Sketches, songs, short documentaries, photo essays, games to explore all sorts of different ideas around this concept. The rights enjoyed by every American regarding personal gun ownership. So it's a really good topic, and we're really excited about it because it's got lots of opinions, political conflict, social conflict, the Bill of Rights, human tragedy, generations of beliefs, vested interests, criminals, children in danger, even animals who aren't wild about being hunted. So there's plenty of raw material. So as we wrote, we tried really hard to have editorial balance, lots of points of view. And we found that the best sources, well, they were books and professors, but they weren't the internet. We were finding relatively little good stuff on the internet, even though at the beginning we thought that would be our best source. So as we wrote scripts, we started realizing what we need is a curriculum. So we went back, nodding to Sesame Street, and ours came out this way: personal and social wellness, responsibility to others, how the world works, and progress in the future. Now these we broke down into 16 topics, and those topics are broken down into more lessons, and eventually we have enough lessons to be able to build, a good 5 years worth of material. So we've been busy. As we're doing this, we're studying cognitive science and positive psychology, and we're realizing there's an awful lot we don't know. See, in the US, we have this very strange situation. Every year, we invest the equivalent of the US Defense Department budget to make sure every person under 20 years old can completely navigate a carefully constructed curriculum. And then at 18 or 20 or 24, we stop investing, we forget about the curriculum completely. Adults, you're on your own. Good luck with the next 50, 60, 70 years. If anything important happens at all, you'll see it on TV. Do good work, see ya. Well, all right, it's been 5 million waking hours since I graduated. And yet, that's better than, the 2 and 3 adults that didn't graduate from college at all. Or the 1 and 8 who never finished high school. A lot of what we've learned has nothing to do with school. But then, how do adults form understanding from knowledge and beliefs? And how does understanding become wisdom? Can we answer those questions? Well, when I ask Greg from my Carmen Sandiego days, he'll say, who cares? We'll have a great time trying. And when I think back to Mrs. Russos, you remember the 6th grade teacher, she'll tell me to think for myself and share my ideas with the class. Fortunately, I can still ask my dad. He taught me a lot. And he's going to tell me to get together with some friends and to figure it out for ourselves. Independent learning, global collaboration. Welcome to the cafe.